Welcome back to live coverage of the 2026 Mackinac Policy Conference. Joined now by U.S. Senator Elissa Slotkin. So good to have you here, Senator.
Thanks for having me.
So you've just announced a new effort that would ban Chinese vehicles from visiting Canada and Mexico into the United States. Tell me a little bit more. What's going on here?
Yeah, okay, so, the Chinese have absolutely moved into Mexico, bought up a ton of auto plants, and they now have 15% market share in Mexico. And the Canadians, because President Trump kind of kicked them in the teeth, made the decision this year to allow in tens of thousands of Chinese vehicles. And as we know, they can come for the day, they can go shopping at Birch Run, they can come over our bridges and tunnels with those vehicles. And I got a problem with that. I got a problem because it's a national security issue. They're taking video. Imagine a vehicle coming over our bridge, hopefully the Gordie Howe, and driving right up to Selfridge Air Force Base, driving around it, taking all that video, getting all that geolocation, all the LiDAR, and taking that back. All that data goes back to China from all those vehicles. And I think if we're going to make a decision, let's make it ourselves and not just allow these vehicles to come across the border willy-nilly, which is what has started to happen in the southern border.
Do you think you can get some bipartisan support on this?
Yeah, it's actually the Chinese auto issue has been very bipartisan. I have legislation with Senator Bernie Moreno from Ohio. He's a former car dealer, a Republican on the other side of the aisle, and we hammered out legislation that encompasses this exact ban because he's worried about Chinese vehicles coming in the United States. And I don't think people totally get that the Chinese literally steal our intellectual property, make cars that look like ours, flood the market with them, subsidize them, pay money from the Chinese Communist Party to make them super cheap so that they can purposely undercut American industry. That is their MO. And I'm just not going to we saw them do it on drones. Used to be we had American drone companies. It's very hard. We're trying to start back up, and Michigan's doing a good job, but they basically put everybody else out of the market because they created these cheap drones and flooded the market with them. I'm not going to let that happen with cars as an American senator and a senator for Michigan.
You spoke, I understand, with Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. What did he have to say?
It was a really actually impactful conversation because the Canadians are our cousins. We have integrated our supply chains. We have worked well together on a million issues. They're our neighbors. They're our family. And I think the animosity has gotten so strong that to hear a Canadian Prime Minister say publicly the things he's been saying about how we need to pull ourselves away and divest from the United States. We need to look elsewhere. We need to team up with other countries that are not the United States, things like places like Brazil. It just kind of breaks your heart a little bit, if I can be frank. But we have long-term interests that go way beyond any one president, and that was the nature of our conversation. I obviously pushed back on the issue of cars. And I said, look, you've made this decision. I don't agree with it. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put in a bill to ban them coming over our bridges and tunnels. And he's like, I get it, but you guys, President Trump's trying to kill our industry, so I got to fight back.
We're talking a little bit about Washington, D.C., and we are here at the Mackinac Policy Conference.
Yeah.
What is on your policy agenda besides this newest effort?
Yeah, certainly cars, autos. Look, I think Michigan is at a really important moment of inflection. We're going to have, one way or another, a new governor, new senator, new leadership up and down our state. And I really feel it's existential for Michigan to grow. We know that if we're not growing, we're shrinking. And I think people don't quite understand that if we don't grow as a state, it's going to be hard to afford our infrastructure in 10 to 15 years. You're going to be charged more for your utilities and your property taxes and everything than your mortgage. And so we got to get ahead of that. We need young families settling here. We need fewer of our kids to choose to go to places like Chicago or wherever, Denver. We need them to stay. And then we need to attract new young families. And I think this conference, always helps focus the mind on those things.
How do you do all of that at a national level? So much of that feels like it needs to be state-based.
Yep. So I think the federal government has a big role in a lot of things we care about. Think about housing. Okay, we know we need more housing in Michigan. We need more housing across the country, but we really need it in Michigan. the amount of federal regulation on how to build a home or how to build an apartment building in Michigan is real. And one of the things I think we could do at the federal level is declare a housing emergency, like call it as it is, and suspend some of those duplicative regulations. The federal government can help give low-cost loans to our builders so that they can buy in bulk and make building a house cheaper. There's a bunch of things that we can do from the federal government that would still deeply affect Michigan.
Are we able to? I mean, we're talking a little bit about, again, Washington, D.C., the willingness on both parties to work together, the ability to compromise. I mean, can we do big things right now?
Well, look, I've been a senator for a year and change, and I've seen nastiness, and I have seen bipartisan work. Truth be told, that bipartisan work is not clickbait. It's not sexy.
Right.
People aren't going viral when they talk about their bipartisan bill. And our system is sort of like focused on the toxic stuff between us. I refuse to give up hope on bipartisanship. And again, I just did a bill with a Republican senator from Ohio. Our staffs and us too worked extremely well together. We agree on not a lot, but this we agree on. And I think the role of leaders is to suck it up and say, even if I don't agree on everything with another person, if it helps my people, my state, my industry, I'm going to work with them, with whoever. And I think, look, there's some of us who still really believe that, and I think that will come around the mountain again. Right now, that clickbaity thing, that's not how you do good governance, so I refuse to believe that's the only way of the future.
Well, let's talk about the future of the Democratic Party. It's something you're thinking a lot about, pushing some alpha energy as you've been pushing. How is the Democratic Party doing right now?
Well, look, I don't think it's a secret to anybody that since President Trump and the Republicans swept everything in 2024, I mean, we were shellacked. And I don't know why that's hard to say. We were shellacked. But the question is, what do you do in response to that? And, you know, there have been times where Republicans have been shellacked. You got to like re-baseline, figure out what you did wrong and how you're going to improve. And I think that's the part that we're still in the middle of, frankly. We haven't finished that process, and we're storming and norming and figuring out what the way of the future is. And one way or another, you know, I want to be a part of that and helping to steer that.
We've got about a minute left. What does your future look like? There's been a lot of conversations about you at the top of the ticket. You've said, you know, that maybe it would be you if there's nobody else. What's going through your mind right now?
Yeah, I know that's a favorite parlor game.
Yes.
I think, honestly, I just want to be a part of that new generation of American leaders that thinks differently and works harder and has a different vision for both parties. I think they both have lost their way, and it doesn't have to be me. Right? There's a million people saying that they're going to run for president. I'm trying to talk to all of them. If I believe in someone, then I would get behind them. But in the meantime, you know, I know that's a favorite activity of reporters. I have no big announcements to make today.
U.S. Senator Elissa Slotkin, appreciate the time.
Thank you.